Hello there, and welcome to Mysteries of Earth. Entering the Mesozoic. Imagine standing on the edge of time itself. The clock of Earth has just struck the end of an era, the Permian period, and what lies before us is a silence unlike any the planet has ever known. Over 90% of life, on both land and sea, has vanished in what we now call the Great Dying. Oceans once teeming with creatures are eerily quiet. Forests are reduced to ghostly stumps. On the continents, the once diverse kingdoms of reptiles and amphibians lie in ruins. Earth has hit a reset button. But from this silence, something extraordinary is about to rise. A new age, the Mesozoic Era, is dawning. The air feels heavy, thick with carbon dioxide. Global temperatures soar higher than most creatures could ever tolerate. The skies above glow under a warmer sun, and the winds carry with them the faint scent of ash and sulfur, remnants of volcanic upheavals that helped drive the mass extinction. The world itself looks unfamiliar. Continents, still joined in the massive supercontinent Pangaea, stretch across the equator like a vast, cracked shield. Imagine deserts so large that they make today's Sahara seem small, with red sands stretching endlessly toward the horizon. The interior of this colossal landmass is dry and hostile, far from the moisture of the sea. Seasonal monsoons batter the coasts, but inland, only the hardiest plants cling to life. And yet, amid the heat, the droughts, and the desolation, the seeds of something new are quietly sprouting. The Mesozoic Era will span 180 million years, a colossal chapter of Earth's history divided into 3 acts: the Triassic, the Jurassic, and the Cretaceous. But at its beginning, there is no guarantee of greatness. Life teeters on the brink, experimenting, reshaping, and testing the fragile limits of survival. Strange reptiles roam the land, some small and agile, scurrying between rocks, others lumbering slowly like shadows of the giant forms yet to come. The ancestors of crocodiles begin their reign, with long legs and swift bodies more suited to chasing prey than the sluggish creatures we know today. Insects, those eternal survivors, buzz across a world that feels strangely empty. Dragonflies with wingspans wider than a man's hand dart over rivers. Beetles crawl in the dust, their lineage stretching back long before the catastrophe. They are reminders that not all was lost, that some threads of the old world remain woven into the fabric of the new. But perhaps the most mysterious development of all is happening quietly, almost unnoticed: the rise of a new lineage of reptiles. They are small, unassuming, and fragile compared to the predators of their age. Yet within them lies the blueprint for the giants of the future. These are the first true dinosaurs, creatures that will come to dominate land, sky, and even imagination. How could such a fragile beginning lead to one of the most successful dynasties in Earth's history? Was it luck, timing, or something deeper written in the very design of life itself? The climate is both a curse and a catalyst. High levels of CO2 create a greenhouse Earth, locking heat into the atmosphere. The polar ice caps? They are gone. The world is warm from pole to pole, with lush forests growing even near the high latitudes. Yet this warmth comes at a cost. Seasonal extremes rage across Pangaea. Summers are blistering, winters bring chilling droughts. These cycles pressure species to adapt, or disappear. Amid this chaos, the oceans recover first. Coral reefs slowly rebuild, though they look nothing like today's reefs. Fish diversify, sharks sharpen their dominance, and marine reptiles begin their climb toward greatness. Imagine a coastline where strange finned lizards dive into the surf, chasing shoals of fish, while ammonites, spiraled cousins of the squid, drift silently through the waves. Life is writing a new script, line by line. On land, plants reshape the landscape. At first, conifers and cycads dominate, ancient relatives of pine and palm, their thick leaves built to survive heat and drought. Ferns carpet the forest floors, covering scars left behind by extinction. Later, in the Jurassic and Cretaceous, new plants will appear, plants with flowers bright and diverse, reshaping ecosystems forever. But for now, the forests are quiet, green, and ancient, filled with the smell of resin and sap. And it is within these forests that the first dinosaurs find shelter. Small, fast, and bipedal, they dart through the undergrowth, scavenging insects and small vertebrates. To walk among them now would not feel like walking in the land of titans, but rather like entering a world of experiments, where nature is still sketching out her designs. But make no mistake, the Mesozoic is not just about dinosaurs. Mammals, too, make their quiet debut here. Tiny, shrew-like creatures scuttle through the night, avoiding the gaze of predators. Their world is and of shadows and survival. Yet they carry the potential to inherit the earth one day. Do they sense the weight of what is to come? Probably not. To them, each night is simply a struggle to find food and avoid becoming food themselves. Yet, in hindsight, we can see their role clearly. They are the survivors in waiting, biding their time until fate reshuffles the deck once again. The dawn of the Mesozoic is a paradoxical time, a world scarred by loss, yet bursting with possibilities. For every species that failed, a new form is rising to take its place. For every desolate plain, a forest waits to reclaim the soil. Out of destruction comes creation, a cycle as old as the planet itself. And as millions of years pass, the Mesozoic Earth transforms from barren survival into a stage of abundance, a theater for giants. Here, predators and prey will grow to unimaginable sizes. Here, the skies will be ruled by winged reptiles, and the oceans will teem with marine leviathans. But to appreciate the spectacle, we must not forget its fragile beginning, a world born from fire, silence, and survival. The question remains, what did it feel like to live on such a world? To see strange reptiles stir under the rising sun, to walk through endless deserts where life clung desperately to existence, to breathe air thicker and hotter than our own. The Mesozoic is not just history. It is a reminder that Earth itself is always in motion, always rewriting its story. And as this new era begins, so too does a daily rhythm of life, a rhythm that will echo for millions of years. A day in the Age of Dinosaurs. How do you grasp 180 million years of history? The Mesozoic Era is vast beyond imagination, stretching from the first fragile dinosaurs of the Triassic to the thunderous giants of the Cretaceous. But to truly understand what life was like, let's shrink that incomprehensible expanse into something more familiar: a single day. Imagine waking up on Earth, not as we know it now, but in the Age of Dinosaurs. The sun rises over a prehistoric horizon, painting the sky with hues of deep orange and crimson. The air feels thicker, heavier with carbon dioxide. Oxygen levels fluctuate depending on the era you've landed in, sometimes higher, sometimes lower, but always shaping the rhythm of life. Morning mist curls above the surface of a Jurassic swamp. The buzzing of ancient insects fills the air. Dragonflies the size of dinner plates skim the water's surface, while cicada-like creatures announce the day with their echoing calls. The earth is awake, and with it, the struggle for survival begins. The first rays of sunlight stir the great herbivores. In the Triassic, they are modest-sized reptiles grazing along fern fields. By the time of the late Jurassic, they become colossal sauropods, stretching their necks toward treetops, stripping branches with methodical sweeps. Their footsteps shake the ground, leaving deep impressions in the soil that will fossilize into markers of their morning routine. But daylight brings danger. From the shadows, predators rise. In the early Mesozoic, it might be sleek archosaurs or primitive crocodile-like hunters. Later, in the Jurassic and Cretaceous, it is the unmistakable presence of theropods, the carnivores. Agile hunters with sharp teeth and keen eyes, they begin their day scanning the plains and forests for prey. Picture a scene: a herd of hadrosaurs quietly grazing at dawn. Their calls are low and rumbling, a way of keeping the group together. But at the edge of the clearing, something watches. A predator, patient and still. The rhythm of the day is not just about eating, it's about not being eaten. Survival defines every heartbeat. By midday, the landscape pulses with activity. The heat intensifies, and the chorus of life reaches its crescendo. Insects swarm. Amphibians retreat to water's edge to avoid the drying heat. Pterosaurs, the lords of the air, ride thermal currents high above, scanning for fish, carrion, or opportunities on the ground below. Beneath the canopy of cycads and conifers, small mammals scuttle in the underbrush. They are nocturnal by habit, but hunger sometimes forces them out in daylight. Always cautious, always listening. They dash between shadows, gathering seeds and insects before darting back into safety. Their world is one of silence and secrecy. Their role in this ecosystem still small but critical. This is the cycle of the Mesozoic day: hunger, risk, and the endless search for resources. Every sunrise is a test. Every afternoon, a gamble. As the sun begins its descent, the land takes on a golden glow. The temperature softens, and the great creatures return to water sources and shaded groves. Herds gather, moving together for protection. Migratory patterns may stretch across continents, dictated by the shifting monsoons of Pangaea or the new coastlines emerging as the supercontinent fractures. Evening is a time of transition. For the giants, it is a chance to rest. For the small and vulnerable, it is a chance to emerge. The shadows lengthen, and with them, opportunity. The mammals now thrive under cover of dusk. Their keen sense of smell and sharp hearing guide them in the twilight. Insects, too, respond to the cooling air, buzzing with renewed energy. The ecosystem resets itself in miniature cycles, each evening a mirror of the greater ebb and flow of evolution. And then, night falls. Darkness in the Mesozoic is not silent. It is alive with mystery. The moon shines over a primeval landscape, its silvery light glinting off rivers and ancient forests. Nocturnal hunters stir, their eyes gleaming in the starlight. Some small theropods likely prowled under cover of night, using stealth rather than speed. Amphibians croak in chorus, while insects create a droning background hum. Night is also the realm of the mammals. Tiny, almost invisible, they live entire lives in these hours, feeding, mating, and avoiding predators. While the dinosaurs dominate the day, the mammals claim the night, planting seeds for the future. Imagine lying under a Jurassic sky, watching unfamiliar constellations, breathing air that feels alien to us now. To live a single night in the Mesozoic would be to experience a world both familiar and utterly foreign, where survival was etched into every moment. This day in the Age of Dinosaurs is not just a story of sunrise and sunset. It is a reflection of the rhythms that shaped evolution. The cycles of feeding, resting, hunting, and hiding sculpted the bodies and behaviors of the creatures we know from fossils today. The great sauropods grew massive, not just to reach trees, but to move constantly in search of food. The predators evolved sharper senses and keener intelligence to keep pace. Mammals became adaptable, thriving in shadows. Lay-in is the groundwork for eventual dominance. The Mesozoic Earth was not static. It was a world of constant testing, where every dawn asked, "Will you survive another day?" But behind this daily cycle, something larger was at play. The continents themselves were shifting, climates changing, seas advancing and retreating. A single day in the Mesozoic may seem simple, but zoom out, and you see millions of years of tectonic motion shaping where creatures could live, hunt, and thrive. In other words, the day-to-day struggle was only the surface. Beneath it lay the grand currents of Earth's history, reshaping the stage upon which these dramas unfolded. So, what was a day like in the Age of Dinosaurs? It was a cycle of tension and release, of hunger and rest, of survival and renewal. It was a day where every living thing played its part in an endless, fragile balance. And if we were to stand there, just for a moment, to breathe that ancient air and watch the sun rise over conifer forests and herds of giants, we might realize something profound. That this rhythm of life, though strange and alien, was not so different from our own. Every morning, a chance. Every night, a reckoning. Every cycle, a story. Morning in the Mesozoic. The first light of dawn creeps across a prehistoric horizon. The air is heavy, carrying the earthy scent of damp ferns, conifers, and ancient swamps. A low mist hovers above the ground, wrapping the landscape in a ghostly shroud. And then, slowly, the Mesozoic world awakens. It is morning in the Age of Dinosaurs. The stillness of night gives way to movement. From the open plains, vast herds of herbivores stir to life. Massive sauropods shift their colossal weight, rising on pillar-like legs to begin the day's endless search for food. Their long necks sweep upward like living cranes, plucking foliage from the highest branches of towering trees. Smaller herbivores, iguanodonts, hadrosaurs, and early ceratopsians, graze cautiously in the lowlands, their heads never lingering too long in one place. Safety comes in numbers, and vigilance is their shield. As the herds move, they carve visible trails into the landscape. Each step leaves a mark, a footprint that, in rare conditions, will be preserved for millions of years, whispering to us across time. These morning migrations are not random. They are patterns written into survival, repeated generation after generation. Above the canopy, the world of sound begins. Feathered dinosaurs, perched high in primitive conifer trees, call out to one another. Their voices, somewhere between bird and reptile, create a chorus that pierces the morning mist. Some use sharp cries to mark territory. Others sing to attract mates, weaving sound into survival. Their feathers catch the early sunlight, shimmering with hints of iridescence. These are not the towering giants of popular imagination, but smaller, agile creatures, raptor-like hunters, insect eaters, and early avian forms testing the skies. They leap from branch to branch, wings half-evolved, learning to glide, to hunt, to thrive. Their presence reminds us that the Mesozoic was not only about size and power, but about diversity, experimentation, and adaptation. Closer to the rivers, the smaller actors in this morning's symphony come to life. The air vibrates with the buzz of insects. Enormous dragonflies hover above still waters, their wings flashing like stained glass in the light. Beetles crawl along the trunks of cycads, while clouds of prehistoric mosquitoes rise in the warmth of dawn. Reptiles, warmed by the first rays of the sun, begin their day with slow, deliberate movements. Crocodilomorphs slip silently into rivers, eyes just above the surface, waiting for prey to approach. Turtles scuttle down muddy banks, their shells glistening with dew. Lizards dart across the forest floor, chasing insects into the underbrush. This world is alive at every level, from the colossal to the minuscule. Every sound, every movement, every shadow is part of a delicate web of life. But make no mistake, morning is a dangerous time. Herbivores grazing in the open must stay alert. A shift in the wind, a rustle in the grass, and the fragile calm can shatter. Predators often hunt at dawn, using low light and mist to mask their approach. The watchful eyes of hadrosaurs scan the edges of the forest, ears tuned for danger. One alarm call, and the entire herd may surge into motion, a stampede that shakes the ground and sends dust rising into the air. For the predators, morning is opportunity. Sleek theropods stalk the edges of rivers and forests, calculating risk and reward. To strike too early is to fail. To wait too long is to go hungry. Morning is a dance, and every player knows the steps. Yet beyond survival, mornings in the Mesozoic carried something profound, a rhythm of renewal. The rising sun marked the reset of the ecosystem. Plants unfurled to catch its warmth. Insects swarmed to feed and reproduce. Dinosaurs set out on their daily migrations. Even the rivers, swollen from seasonal rains, mirrored this rhythm. Each new day, a chance for life to continue, to adapt, to endure. This rhythm also shaped behavior in ways we can still trace today. Many dinosaur species likely synchronized their activities with light and temperature, just as animals do now. Feeding, mating, nesting, all tied to the cycles of the earth, the tilt of its axis, and the pull of the sun. Morning was not just a time of day, it was the heartbeat of survival. Imagine standing there, just for a moment, in the quiet of a Mesozoic dawn. The ground damp beneath your feet, the air thick and humid. You hear the low rumble of a sauropod shifting its massive body. You smell the resin of pine-like conifers mixing with the musk of animals. Overhead, the call of feathered dinosaurs echoes through the canopy. And at the river's edge, insects shimmer in the golden light, their wings catching every ray of the rising sun. It is a world both alien and familiar, different in its creatures, yet bound to the same cycles we know today. Sunrise, survival, renewal. But mornings are just beginnings. As the sun climbs higher, heat takes hold, and the tempo of the Mesozoic world changes. What began in mist and cool air shifts into something more intense, more perilous. Activity reaches its peak, and the balance between predator and prey, hunger and safety, becomes sharper than ever. If dawn was a time of awakening, midday was the true test of endurance. Midday heat and storms. The sun climbs higher. Shadows shrink. What began as a cool, misty dawn now swells into something harsher. By midday, the Mesozoic world is bathed in intense, unrelenting heat. The air grows heavy, shimmering above rocky plains. Forest floors, once damp with morning dew, dry into a brittle crackle beneath heavy footsteps. This was no ordinary warmth. Carbon dioxide levels in the Mesozoic were far higher than today. Temperatures soared, especially in equatorial regions, creating climates that pressed every creature into cycles of adaptation. For many, midday was not a time for activity, but a time for survival. On the open floodplains, animals sought relief. Shade became a currency. Herds of smaller herbivores pressed closer to the edges of forests, sheltering under cycads and conifers. Even predators, with their keen hunger, often retreated into the dimness of trees, conserving energy until the air cooled again. At riverbanks, clusters of reptiles sprawled along muddy shores, their bodies soaking heat before slipping into water to cool themselves. Crocodile-like hunters floated silently just below the surface, their eyes breaking the waterline, patient and still. Amphibians hid under rocks and vegetation, retreating from the glare. The cycle was universal. Insects slowed their flight, their wings heavy in the heat. Even mammals, those tiny nocturnal survivors of the age, burrowed into shaded hollows, waiting for the sun's fury to pass. But not all creatures bowed to the midday blaze. The giants of the age, the sauropods, continued their endless march through forests and plains. Their sheer size insulated them from the discomforts that forced smaller animals into hiding. With necks that rose like cranes above the canopy, they stripped branches clean, devouring hundreds of pounds of vegetation each day. Imagine the sound, the rhythmic teari of leaves, the crack of branches breaking under massive jaws, the low rumble of footsteps echoing like distant thunder. For these giants, midday heat was not an obstacle. It was simply the background to their relentless hunger. Their size gave them power. Predators rarely dared to challenge an adult sauropod. And so, as the smaller creatures sheltered, the giants fed openly beneath the blazing sun, moving slowly but steadily, their lives ruled by appetite. Yet in the Mesozoic, stillness was always temporary. From morning calm to midday blaze, the atmosphere itself could turn in an instant. The very heat that baked the land also fueled chaos in the skies. As the hours passed, the air grew restless. Clouds swelled, their edges darkening, curling, building towers that stretched toward the heavens. The first gusts came suddenly, cool winds cutting through the suffocating warmth. The herds felt it before the storm even arrived. Heads lifted, ears twitched, eyes scanned the horizon. Something was coming. And then, without warning, the skies opened. Storms in the Mesozoic were violent. Sheets of rain hammered the ground, turning dust into rivers of mud within minutes. Lightning split the skies, illuminating forests in jagged flashes of brilliance. The thunder that followed rolled across valleys, deep and resonant, shaking the earth like a predator's roar, magnified 1,000 times. For the animals, these storms were both danger and deliverance. Relief came in the form of cool rain, drenching overheated bodies, soaking dry ground, and replenishing rivers. But danger was never far behind. Floods surged through lowlands, sweeping away the unprepared. Landslides tumbled down slopes. Shallow nests, carefully hidden in soil, were often destroyed in an afternoon. For the smallest creatures, a single storm could change everything. The giants weathered it differently. Sauropods stood unmoving, their massive bodies unbothered by torrents. Herds of hadrosaurs and ceratopsians clustered together, adults shielding their young from the pounding rain. Smaller theropods darted for cover in forests, while winged pterosaurs were driven to the ground, their flight made treacherous by sudden winds. And yet, the landscape after such storms carried its own transformation. Forests glistened, every leaf dripping with water. The air filled with the smell of wet vegetation and resin, heavy and sweet. Streams overflowed, cutting new channels through soil. The Mesozoic was constantly reshaped, not just by time, but by the immediacy of weather. A world in motion, sculpted by sudden violence. Imagine standing there as the storm passes. The sky clears, slowly, revealing shafts of sunlight breaking through torn clouds. Mist rises from the ground, curling in ethereal shapes above the canopy. Herds emerge cautiously, grazing on fresh shoots nourished by rain. Insects buzz back to life, swarming in the damp air. The cycle begins again. Heat, storm, renewal. Each afternoon held the possibility of chaos, but also the promise of sustenance. This rhythm, repeated across millions of years, shaped the behaviors and instincts of every creature. For us, the memory of these storms is written not in sound or sight, but in stone. Sediment layers show sudden floods, fossilized trees mark lightning strikes, and whole groups of animals entombed in mudslides tell stories of afternoons when survival faltered. Each discovery is a whisper of how destructive and transformative midday could be. These storms were not interruptions to life in the Mesozoic. They were part of it, essential, cyclical, a reminder that nature never stood still, and that adaptation was the only constant. But the day did not end here. As the storms faded and the air cooled, the Mesozoic world shifted once more. Shadows lengthened, predators stirred, and the balance of survival tipped again. Afternoon predators. The storm has passed. The land steams under the fading sun, and shadows stretch long across the Mesozoic world. The heat lingers, but the energy of the landscape has shifted. Afternoon is not a time for rest. It is a time for movement, for hunger, for risk. Predators stir. Imagine the silence breaking. From the edge of a forest, an Allosaurus emerges. Its massive frame sways with every step, jaws lined with serrated teeth glinting in the golden light. Muscles ripple beneath scaly skin as it scans the open plain. For hours, it has waited out the worst of the heat, conserving energy. Now, it is ready. The Allosaurus is not a mindless killer. It is patient, deliberate, calculating. Its amber eyes track a herd of herbivores grazing at a distance. Stegosaurs, their plated backs rising like shields. Each animal carries the story of survival, etched into its body. Armor, spikes, horns. Defense is their design. But predators evolve just as relentlessly as prey. The Allosaurus lowers its body, moving with a strange mix of grace and menace. The hunt begins. Elsewhere, in the deep shadows of northern forests, another figure commands the landscape, Tyrannosaurus rex. Though separated in time and place from Allosaurus, it represents the pinnacle of predator power in the later Mesozoic. With a head the size of a boulder and a bite strong enough to crush bone, T-Rex was less about stealth and more about brute dominance. Picture the ground vibrating with each footfall. The smell of decay hangs in the air. T-Rex was not above scavenging, following the scent of carrion as readily as it chased live prey. A carcass was a prize, and even this apex predator had to defend its meals against smaller, faster hunters. In this world, survival was not just about who could kill. It was also about who could keep what they had taken. But predators came in all sizes, not E. Very hunter, was a bowering titan. Pack-hunting raptors darted across scrublands, their movements quick, precise, and cooperative. Alone, they posed little threat to a fully grown herbivore. Together, they became a force of strategy, cutting, circling, striking in unison. Imagine the chaos of such a hunt. Dust rising, the pounding of hooves, the shrieks of panic, the swift flashes of claw and tooth. These smaller predators thrived on opportunity, seizing the weak, the young, or the distracted. Their strength lay not in size, but in unity. This constant interplay, giants against giants, packs against prey, was the heartbeat of the Mesozoic afternoon. Every movement carried risk, every moment balanced between predator and prey. And while land roared with conflict, the seas were no less perilous. Beneath the surface, shadows glided through prehistoric oceans. Massive plesiosaurs stretched their long necks into shoals of fish, snapping with precision. Ichthyosaurs, shaped like modern dolphins, surged through the water with speed, ambushing squid and smaller reptiles. And then there were the true monsters, mosasaurs, enormous marine lizards, jaws wide enough to swallow a shark whole. The ocean was a world where escape was fleeting. Once caught in the gaze of a marine predator, survival depended on bursts of speed, luck, or the safety of numbers. Schools of fish scattered like silver rain when an ichthyosaur charged through. The water itself seemed alive, always shifting, always filled with hidden danger. On land, one could flee into forest or shelter in burrows. But in the sea, there was no refuge, only the endless pursuit of hunter and hunted. The rhythm of the afternoon was defined by this eternal duel. Herbivores grazed with one eye always turned toward the horizon. Small mammals darted from burrow to burrow, vanishing at the slightest vibration in the earth. Even the air was not free from peril. Pterosaurs circled above, ready to snatch the unwary from open ground. It was not a world of calm existence, but of constant awareness. To live was to remain vigilant, but for predators, life was equally precarious. A failed hunt meant wasted energy, hunger, and weakness. Injuries from prey could be fatal. The sharp horns of a ceratopsian, or the tail swipe of a sauropod, could end a hunter's reign in an instant. Even the mighty T-Rex walked a fine line between dominance and vulnerability. Predator and prey were bound together, each shaping the other across millennia. Defense evolved because of the hunter. The hunter grew stronger because of defense. This ancient dance of survival carved the very future of life on Earth. Imagine standing at the edge of a clearing, watching as the sun dips lower. The golden light catches dust in the air, turning it to a haze. In the distance, a hunt unfolds, herbivores scattering, predators lunging, the raw drama of existence playing out in silence, except for the thunder of footsteps and the cries of struggle. This was the Mesozoic afternoon, a time when hunger ruled, when the shadows lengthened and predators pressed their advantage, a time when life balanced on the edge of a knife, with survival never guaranteed. For us, the traces of these moments are locked in stone. Fossils of broken bones reveal violent struggles. Bite marks etched into skeletons tell of predators that fed, scavenged, or fought. Even fossilized footprints capture the pursuit, the chase preserved across millions of years. What we uncover is not just biology, but story. A story of power, desperation, and end, less adaptation. And yet, as the sun began to fall, the energy of the world shifted again. The day's heat faded, the storms quieted, and a new threat crept across the horizon: the night. If the afternoon belonged to predators of flesh and blood, the night belonged to those who thrived in silence and shadow. Night in the Mesozoic, the sun sinks low, spilling its final light across the horizon. The air, still heavy with the heat of the afternoon, begins to cool. Long shadows stretch across the plains, and a hush settles over the Mesozoic world. The day of thunder has ended, but the night is just beginning. For many, darkness is a signal of rest. Herds gather in tighter formations, instinct pulling them together for safety. Massive sauropods, their necks like arching towers, lower their heads to the ground. Their heavy breathing creates a low rumble, like distant drums rolling across the earth. Smaller herbivores call out in sharp, uneasy notes, warning each other as the light fades. The plains are alive with sound, deep bellows, high-pitched chirps, the endless murmur of life, preparing for night. But this chorus is more than communication. It is survival. Each cry is both reassurance to kin and a warning to lurking predators. Because when the sun disappears, another world awakens. Above, the skies deepen into a canvas of brilliance. Imagine a night without the haze of modern pollution, without city lights to dull the heavens. The Milky Way blazes overhead, stretching like a river of fire across the black. Stars shine with an intensity almost lost to us today. Constellations we know, and many we no longer recognize, burn brightly in the Mesozoic sky. For every creature below, these cosmic patterns have no name, yet they rule the rhythm of existence. Day, night, season, migration. The moon too rises, but it is closer than we see it today, glowing larger, casting brighter silver light across forests and plains. Its illumination reveals both sanctuary and threat. Under its glow, movements are betrayed, shadows lengthen, and eyes gleam in the dark. The night is not silent. It is alive with the stirrings of creatures adapted for darkness, small mammals, long overshadowed by. Dinosaurs now emerge from burrows and nests. Tiny fur-covered bodies scurry across the undergrowth, whiskers twitching, eyes wide and luminous. These early mammals, though primitive, possess a secret advantage: night vision. In a world dominated by giants, they carved their survival in the hours when most predators slept. Feeding on insects, seeds, and fallen fruits, they avoided the chaos of the daylight hunt. And yet, even in darkness, safety was never certain. From the trees, shadows glide silently. Feathered dinosaurs, smaller relatives of the great raptors, stalk with keen eyes adapted to starlight. Imagine a creature no larger than a dog, its body cloaked in primitive feathers, slipping through the branches. With each step, it watches, waits, and then strikes. A quick snap, and a mammal's night ends before it begins. These hunters ruled not with brute force, but with stealth and patience. The Mesozoic night was a paradox. It gave refuge to the small, but it also sharpened the skills of the unseen. Near rivers and lakes, the danger was different. The cooling night air stirred fog above the water. Reptiles, ancient crocodilians, drifted silently, eyes just above the surface. With a sudden burst, they lunged, seizing fish or the careless creature that ventured too close to drink. Their jaws snapped shut with terrifying precision, a reminder that even in stillness, predators lurked. On the open plains, herds shifted uneasily. The calls of the day were replaced with low, throaty rumbles. Parents guarded the young, circling them closely. Even the giant sauropods were vulnerable in darkness, their bulk a challenge to defend against predators, emboldened by the cover of night. And yet, the greatest danger did not always come from the land. Look up again. The sky itself moved with life. Pterosaurs, some with wingspans as wide as a small aircraft, soared through the twilight. Though many rested at night, others adapted to the lunar glow, diving to snatch fish from rivers or smaller prey from the ground. Their wings beat the air with a leathery whisper, their silhouettes crossing the moonlit sky like phantoms. Now imagine the perspective of a small mammal looking up. Every shadow above could mean death. The ground itself was treacherous. The night demanded constant alertness. Every rustle, every ripple, every flicker of movement held the possibility of danger. And yet for some, the night was also an opportunity. The mammals of the Mesozoic were not just survivors of darkness. They were pioneers of it. In their tiny bodies lay the seeds of the future. Brains that grew sharper, senses that became keener, behaviors that would one day expand into dominance. While dinosaurs ruled the day, mammals evolved quietly in the night. Could it be that without the cover of darkness, without the evolutionary pressures of the Mesozoic night, mammals might never have risen to power after the dinosaurs' fall? In the silence of starlight, the blueprint of our own story was being written. But for the dinosaurs themselves, night carried its own mysteries. Some species may have been partly nocturnal. Their eyes adapted for both daylight hunts and midnight stalks. Fossil evidence of enlarged eye sockets hints at creatures that thrived in dim light. The world was not neatly divided between day and night. Some ruled in both, shifting seamlessly with the turning of the earth. So picture the scene: the Milky Way burning overhead, herds gathered in uneasy rest, small mammals scurrying in search of scraps, feathered predators moving with eerie silence, crocodilian jaws snapping in the water, pterosaurs gliding like shadows across the moon. This was the Mesozoic night, a realm of whispers, shadows, and starlight. For us, imagining such a night brings a strange awe. To stand in that world would be to witness both beauty and terror interwoven, the breathtaking sweep of stars above, and the constant reminder of danger all around. It was a world where survival never slept, where the cycle of predator and prey continued without pause. And yet, each night also marked resilience. Each creature that lived through the darkness carried its lineage forward, one more step into the future. But what happened when the night gave way again to light? When the sun rose, burning away the fog, reawakening the chorus of calls, and reigniting the struggle for survival. Ordinary days, extraordinary fossils. The Mesozoic world was not always a scene of roaring predators or catastrophic eruptions. More often, it was a place of routine, of ordinary days. A mother guarding her nest, a herd moving quietly along a riverbank, a young dinosaur taking its first awkward steps. To those who lived them, these were just fleeting moments, small, unremarkable threads in the endless fabric of life. And yet, millions of years later, some of those moments endure. Fossilized, not in grandeur, but in their very ordinariness. A footprint pressed into soft mud, a leaf caught in volcanic ash, the curled form of a creature caught mid-slumber, its life suddenly interrupted. These fragile traces, preserved by chance, tell us something the bones of giants cannot: what it felt like to live a day in the Mesozoic. Imagine walking along a barren desert plain today. Beneath the sand lies a hidden story, written in stone. A series of footprints stretches across the rock, a line of three-toed impressions leading into the distance. At first glance, they are simple marks, but look closer, and you see rhythm. The stride reveals the pace, the depth shows the weight, the spacing suggests the size. You are no longer staring at rock. You are following a living creature across a prehistoric landscape. Some trackways capture drama, predators pursuing prey, sudden changes in speed, frantic turns. Others are calm, a herd moving slowly, each step in quiet unison. Fossils like these are not just records of existence. They are records of motion, behavior, and routine. They allow us to imagine a single day etched into eternity. But it is not only tracks that reveal the hidden rhythms of the past. Nests, delicate circular structures pressed into ancient sediment, speak of care and survival. Fossilized eggs, some still holding the curled outlines of embryos, show us that dinosaurs were not simply cold, monstrous reptiles. They nurtured, they protected, they invested in the fragile beginnings of life. Picture a nesting ground. Dozens of shallow bowls dug into soft earth, each filled with eggs. Around them, adults stand guard. Some may shade their offspring with their own bodies. Others may turn the eggs carefully, ensuring even warmth. It is a scene we know well from birds today, because birds are the living descendants of those very creatures. And in rare cases, disaster struck at just the wrong moment, capturing these ordinary acts in fossil form. A sudden flood, a burst of volcanic ash, or a collapse of earth could bury entire nests, freezing them in place for us to uncover millions of years later. Each fossilized egg is a voice from deep time, whispering of daily struggles and maternal care. Then there are the fossils of sudden death. Creatures caught mid-motion, their final acts preserved forever. A fish with another still in its mouth, interrupted during a meal. A dinosaur locked in combat with another, both perishing in the struggle. These are extraordinary snapshots of ordinary life abruptly halted, moments so fleeting that their preservation feels almost miraculous. Think of the famous fighting dinosaurs fossil, a velociraptor with its sickle claw embedded in the neck of a protoceratops. Both locked in their last battle, both entombed by a sudden sandstorm. In that frozen instant, we glimpse not just their anatomy, but their behavior, their ferocity, their desperate will to live. Ordinary routines, hunting, eating, protecting, resting, were suddenly immortalized by chance catastrophes. Without them, we might never have seen such vivid fragments of the past. Even the smallest fossils tell grand stories. Insects trapped in amber preserve details as fine as a wing vein or a single hair. Leaves pressed into stone show the veins of ancient plants, their edges nibbled by herbivores long gone. Raindrops splattered into soft mud, their impressions hardened over time, give us the texture of a storm from millions of years ago. It is humbling to realize the Mesozoic was not only about giants, it was also about the hum of ordinary life, each small event building toward the vast story of Earth's history. And fossils allow us to touch those moments, however briefly. But why do these traces survive at all? Preservation is rare. Most life vanishes without a trace, consumed by decay, scavengers, or the turning of the earth. For something as fragile as an eggshell or a footprint to last millions of years, conditions must align perfectly. Sediment must bury it quickly. Water and oxygen must be limited. Minerals must slowly replace the fragile structure. Fossilization is not the rule. It is the exception, which means that every fossil we uncover is a gift of chance. Each one is a message not meant to be written, yet somehow preserved for us. The story of the Mesozoic is not complete. It is a patchwork quilt, stitched together from the rarest fragments of time. And perhaps this is the true wonder of fossils. They are not just bones in museums or imprints in rock. They are windows into lives that once moved, breathed, and struggled. They remind us that history is not only about cataclysms or extinctions. It is about the ordinary rhythms of life itself. The grazing of a herd, the call of a parent to its young, the simple act of taking one more step forward. We often imagine the Mesozoic as extraordinary, and in many ways it was. But it was also built upon ordinary days, lived out by creatures who never knew they would be remembered. They simply lived, and by doing so, they left traces that now allow us to remember them. So the next time you see a fossil, whether a towering skeleton or a small footprint, consider this. You are not just looking at stone. You are looking at a moment, a heartbeat of a life that once was. The catastrophe. End of the Cretaceous. For more than 180 million years, life in the Mesozoic thrived. Dinosaurs dominated the land, marine reptiles patrolled the oceans, and flying reptiles ruled the skies. But no empire lasts forever. The Age of Dinosaurs, which seemed unshakable, ended not with a whimper, but with cataclysm. So what truly happened at the close of the Cretaceous, 66 million years ago? What combination of forces brought one of the most extraordinary chapters of Earth's history crashing to a close? It began even before the final blow. Deep within the Earth, in what is now India, titanic forces stirred. Over hundreds of thousands of years, colossal volcanic eruptions poured rivers of lava across the land. These eruptions, known as the Deccan Traps, built up layers of basalt thousands of feet thick, covering an area larger than modern-day Europe. But lava was only part of the story. These eruptions belched vast amounts of carbon dioxide and sulfur dioxide into the atmosphere. Imagine skies filled with toxic haze, rainfall turned acidic, and global temperatures rising and falling erratically. For life that depended on stability, the world was already beginning to tip out of balance. Plants struggled with shifts in climate. Ecosystems bent under the pressure. Yet still, life persisted. Dinosaurs walked the steaming volcanic plains. Oceans continued to surge with mosasaurs and ammonites. The world was bruised, but not broken. Then came the moment that changed everything. On what must have been an ordinary day, a chunk of rock from space, about 10 kilometers wide, entered Earth's atmosphere. It was moving faster than a bullet, faster than any storm wind, faster than the eye could follow. In seconds, it tore through the sky and slammed into the shallow sea near the Yucatan Peninsula of modern Mexico. The energy released was beyond comprehension. It was as if billions of nuclear bombs had detonated at once. The ground heaved, the ocean boiled, the sky lit brighter than the sun. A crater more than 100 miles wide opened in an instant. The Chicxulub crater, scar of the catastrophe. The immediate effects were apocalyptic. Shockwaves rippled across the continents. Mega tsunamis hundreds of feet high swept coastlines clean. Forests caught fire as superheated debris rained down, igniting the very air. Creatures near the impact would have been obliterated before they even registered what had happened. But the true devastation was yet to come. The force of the impact launched trillions of tons of dust, ash, and vaporized rock into the upper atmosphere. This shroud encircled the globe, blocking sunlight. Days became twilight. Twilight became darkness. For weeks, months, perhaps even years, the world was cloaked in a shadowed sky. Photosynthesis stalled. Plants withered. Plankton in the oceans died off. And when the bottom of the food chain collapses, everything above it begins to fall. The mighty herbivores, sauropods, hadrosaurs, ceratopsians, suddenly found themselves without food. Carnivores, from raptors to tyrannosaurs, followed soon after. Even in the seas, once teeming ecosystems starved. Ammonites disappeared, along with many marine reptiles. The Earth was plunged into what scientists call a nuclear winter, a collapse of warmth and light. Temperatures dropped. Acid rain fell. Fires raged, then burned themselves out, leaving only barren landscapes behind. It was the end of an era. Roughly 75% of all species vanished in the wake of the catastrophe. Entire dynasties of life, the towering dinosaurs, the coiling ammonites, the flying pterosaurs, were extinguished. The world that emerged after would never again look the same. But not everything died. Small mammals, already living in the shadows of dinosaurs, found refuge in burrows and cracks. Birds, descendants of small feathered theropods, survived by adapting to seeds and other hardy foods. Crocodiles, turtles, and some amphibians endured by hunkering down in water and mud. Life retreated, but it did not surrender. This is the paradox of extinction. In the death of the old, space is made for the new. Scientists still debate how the interplay of forces shaped the catastrophe. Were the Deccan Traps eruptions already pushing ecosystems to the brink, leaving them fragile and vulnerable? Or was the asteroid so overwhelming that it alone sealed the dinosaurs' fate? Perhaps it was the combination. The slow poison of volcanism followed by the sudden hammer strike of impact. What we know for certain is that in the span of a geological heartbeat, the age of dinosaurs ended, and with their passing, the stage was cleared for the rise of mammals, and ultimately, for us. Pause for a moment and imagine the world as it must have looked in the weeks after the asteroid struck. Blackened skies, fires smoldering where forests once stood, silent plains where once herds thundered, oceans eerily empty, their food chains severed. A planet bruised and scarred, wrapped in mourning, and yet, even here, life clung to existence. Tiny mammals scurrying for seeds, birds calling faintly in the dim light, reptiles slipping into muddy rivers, fragile survivors carrying forward the torch of evolution. It is in these survivors that we see the resilience of Earth itself. For though the catastrophe was vast, it was not the end of life. It was only the end of one chapter. The story of the Mesozoic closed in fire and darkness, but its echoes remain. In every fossilized bone, in every rock layer, in every bird that takes flight today, we carry the memory of that cataclysm. It is a reminder that Earth is shaped not only by the steady passage of time, but also by sudden, violent upheavals, extinction and renewal, death and rebirth. The cycle continues, survivors, and the dawn of the Cenozoic. The asteroid struck, the skies darkened, and the world of the dinosaurs fell silent. Yet even in the bleak aftermath of fire and shadow, not all life vanished. In the ruins of the Cretaceous, survivors emerged, small, resilient, and often overlooked. And from their persistence, a new chapter of Earth's history began. The dawn of the Cenozoic. Imagine the first days after the catastrophe. Vast forests had burned to ash, oceans trembled with disrupted currents, and the air carried the stench of smoke and decay. Once mighty dinosaurs, the tyrants of their age, were gone. Their towering bones lay strewn across blackened plains. But if you looked closer, beneath the devastation, you would see life clinging on. Small mammals darted in and out of burrows, feeding on seeds, insects, and anything they could scavenge. Birds, descendants of small feathered dinosaurs, fluttered weakly through the dim skies, their calls piercing the silence. Crocodiles, patient and enduring, lay low in rivers and swamps, their ancient strategy of waiting serving them well. Plants that could weather low light and poor soil, ferns, hardy shrubs, and seed-bearing plants spread across scarred landscapes. These were the survivors. They were not the largest, nor the most fearsome, but they carried within them the blueprint for Earth's next great age. But why did they endure when the dinosaurs fell? The answer lies in resilience and adaptability. Dinosaurs had ruled supreme, but their bodies, diets, and lifestyles tied them to ecosystems that collapsed overnight. Massive herbivores required endless supplies of vegetation. Apex predators depended on those herds. When plants withered in the darkened skies, the food chain unraveled from the bottom up. Mammals, however, had long lived in the shadows. Most were small, nocturnal, and resourceful. They could eat seeds, oots, and insects, foods that persisted even when sunlight did not. Their size allowed them to hide in burrows, shielding them from fire, cold, and falling debris. Birds, too, had a survival advantage. Their ability to fly, their adaptable diets, and their link to the dinosaur lineage gave them the flexibility dinosaurs lacked. And crocodiles? They were ancient survivors of extinction before. Cold-blooded, amphibious, able to slow their metabolism, they endured while giants perished. In the ruins of the old world, it was not strength or size that determined survival, but adaptability. As decades turned into centuries, the darkness lifted, the skies slowly cleared, sunlight returned, and with it, new life began to spread. The landscapes of the early Cenozoic must have seemed alien to the survivors. Where once sauropods towered and raptors prowled, now ferns and flowering plants crept back across the ground. Dense forests regrew, spreading with vigor across continents. Rivers and lakes filled once more with life. In these new environments, mammals flourished. No longer confined to the shadows, they began to diversify. Some grew larger, filling the niches left vacant by dinosaurs. Others remained small, quick, and agile, exploring new ways to survive. Within just a few million years, the descendants of these survivors would evolve into a bewildering array of forms: hoofed grazers, nimble predators, and even primates, the distant ancestors of humans. Birds, too, flourished. Freed from their fearsome dinosaur cousins, they expanded into countless varieties: songbirds, seabirds, raptors, filling the skies with color and sound. The lineage of dinosaurs had not ended after all. It had simply transformed. Every bird alive today is a living fragment of that lost world, carrying forward the legacy of the dinosaurs. And crocodiles, though they changed little, remained steadfast. Lurking in rivers, they became living fossils, reminders of a more ancient Earth. This was the dawn of the Cenozoic, sometimes called the Age of Mammals. Yet in truth, it was more than just the mammal's story. It was the story of Earth rebuilding itself, of ecosystems reforming, of balance being restored after collapse. Picture the planet in these early days. Lush forests rising again from charred ground, small mammals leaping from branch to branch, early horses the size of dogs grazing by rivers, giant flightless birds thundering across plains. The silence left by dinosaurs was replaced by new sounds, chirps, squeaks, and calls from creatures that would go on to shape the modern world. The Cenozoic was a time of opportunity, born from catastrophe. The survivors had not just lived through extinction, they had inherited a world ready to be reshaped. Yet the memory of the Mesozoic never vanished. In the bones scattered across rock beds, in the fossils preserved beneath layers of ash and mud, the age of dinosaurs remained etched into Earth's history. And in the wings of birds, in the resilience of crocodiles, in the adaptability of mammals, the echoes of that lost world carried forward into the present. Extinction had not been the end. It had been a beginning. If the Cretaceous closed with fire and shadow, the Cenozoic opened with renewal and possibility. The Earth was scarred but alive, reshaped but fertile. From the smallest burrowing mammal, the first great beasts of this new age, every survivor told the same story. Life, no matter how battered, always finds a way forward. Echoes of the Mesozoic. The Mesozoic ended more than 66 million years ago. Yet if you step outside today, listen to the chirp of a bird, watch the petals of a flower unfurl, or gaze at the delicate balance of an ecosystem, you are, in truth, still walking through its echoes. The age of dinosaurs may seem long gone, but its fingerprints remain all around us. The question is, do we recognize them? Think first of the birds. Those sparrows that dart across city streets, the hawks circling above farmlands, or the penguins braving icy seas. They are not just descendants of dinosaurs. They are dinosaurs, the living heirs of a lineage that once ruled the earth. Every flap of a wing is an echo of ancient feathers, honed in forests where small raptors leapt between branches. Every songbird that greets the morning carries the voice of a world we thought lost. Then there are the flowers. During the Mesozoic, angiosperms, flowering plants, exploded across the continents. Their colors, scents, and shapes were more than decoration. They were strategies, inviting insects to carry pollen, weaving together a new web of life. Today, when you see a field of wildflowers, or the bloom of a rose, you are looking at the very legacy of that revolution. It was the Mesozoic that painted the world with blossoms, a palette that still defines our landscapes. And the ecosystems themselves, balanced, layered, and intricate, carry forward patterns first written in those ancient days. Predators shaping prey, plants adapting to herbivores, oceans pulsing with cycles of abundance and collapse. We may live in the Cenozoic, but the blueprint is undeniably Mesozoic. The rhythms of survival, the strategies of adaptation, they have not vanished. They simply evolved. But the echoes of the Mesozoic do not end with biology. They live in our culture, our imagination, and our myths. Dinosaurs are more than fossils in museums. They are symbols of both power and fragility, giants who once dominated Earth, only to vanish in the blink of a geological eye. Why are children across the globe fascinated by them? Why do movies, books, and art return again and again to these creatures? Perhaps because dinosaurs remind us of possibility, of worlds stranger than our own, of life in forms almost alien, and of the impermanence of dominance. To marvel at a Tyrannosaurus skull is to confront both awe and humility. It is to realize that even the most unstoppable rulers of Earth can be undone. The Mesozoic, in this way, is not just ancient history, it is a mirror. It reflects our own desires for greatness, our fears of extinction, and our fascination with the mysterious interplay between power and vulnerability. Dinosaurs remind us that the Earth was never ours alone, and it will not remain ours forever. But perhaps the greatest echo of the Mesozoic lies not in fossils or feathers, but in the lessons it whispers to us: resilience. Life endures, even when worlds collapse. The asteroid that ended the Cretaceous did not end the story of life. It transformed it. The survivors adapted, diversified, and built the foundations of our present. Adaptation. Strength did not guarantee survival. The massive dinosaurs fell, while small, resourceful creatures inherited the Earth. It was flexibility, not force, that carried life forward. Humility. When we gaze back across deep time, we see how fragile dominance truly is. No creature, no empire, no age lasts forever. The dinosaurs remind us that our own chapter, however extraordinary, will one day pass into memory. What does that mean for us, here and now? It means our survival, too, may depend not on power, but on wisdom, on our ability to adapt to changing climates, shifting ecosystems, and the challenges we ourselves have set in motion. The Mesozoic is not just a story of dinosaurs. It is a cautionary tale for humanity. So, what is the Mesozoic to us today? It is a song half forgotten, but still echoing through time. It is the birds in the trees, the flowers in bloom, the ecosystems that thrive all around us. It is the fossils beneath our feet and the myths in our minds. It is a reminder that life is ancient, fragile, and endlessly creative. The dinosaurs may be gone, but their legacy is eternal. The world we inhabit is not separate from theirs. It is a continuation. We live in the shadow of their age, carrying forward the lessons of survival they unknowingly left behind. And as we look to the future, uncertain of what comes next, perhaps the echoes of the Mesozoic are not just history. Perhaps they are a guide,